Welcome to Data Analytics Chat, podcast where we discuss the world of data, AI, and the careers shaping it. I'm your host, Ben Parker, bringing you real stories, expert insights, and practical advice to help you thrive in the world of data. Today's topic is an interesting one. With AI is everywhere, but I guess hype alone won't drive results. So today's episode, we're going to cut through the noise, focus on what really matters, ROI. Today, I'm excited to welcome David Ellison, Chief Data Scientist and Director of AI Engineering at Lenovo. In this episode, we'll explore his career journey, pivotal moments that shaped his path, and also discuss the topic in more detail. David, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. So this is a big topic. A lot of businesses have got sidetracked. In my opinion, of speaking to a lot of people in the industry. So it'd be an interesting conversation to discuss. So do you want to start off by just going through your career journey?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I started off. I got my undergraduate in computer science, and I was actually interested in AI at the time. I tried to get a minor in AI, but that didn't exist. And everyone told me that AI was a bad word and that it was all statistical learning, or it's called something. Nobody called it AI. So I moved on, and I applied, and I got into Johns Hopkins, and I did in the biomedical engineering field. And, I worked there for about 7 years, applying these AI things that I wasn't supposed to talk about, but applying statistical learning and applying computer vision to how cells develop and how things grow, and how cells communicate with one another. And then when I graduated, however, I had a problem finding a job as a biomedical engineer. There wasn't really funding in the area right then. The pharma companies were going through a process of reorganization. So I had to make a pivot. And I had a friend tell me there's this new job title out there. It's just been invented. It's about a year or two old. It's called data scientist. At that time, there were no programs in AI. There was no programs in data science. It's just like there's this new field. It's called data science. You have all the qualifications, maybe you should apply. So I used that, and I put a data scientist on my title, and got a job instantly after that. It was back in the early days of AI and data science. And so then I worked at a startup for about 3 years, and did a lot of data crunching, and executive compensation, and things that companies paid us for. And then I pivoted and got a job at the postal service, and there was working with a lot of different information, a lot of interesting information. 7 billion packages routed through back when I was there. 7 billion packages a year. Lots of interesting data to work with. At the Postal Service, after the Postal Service, I got a job at Lenovo. I've been with Lenovo 7 years now, and grown in that time from an individual contributor to a leader, to a manager, in my current role right now. Growing the business from a $200 million business to about $1 billion business at the time I've been there.
So broad experience you've got with throughout your career so far.
Absolutely. It's been an exciting journey of learning. I know the field, getting into the field for a lot of people is it's hard. I do realize that I had the benefit of being one of the first people in the gate to get started in data and AI. But there's a lot to learn. There's a lot of growing throughout this entire process.
Yeah. And so, how do you? Obviously, you worked in a lot of different industries. How have you found the transition? Obviously, speak to a lot of companies. They want ideally people with similar industry domain expertise. How did you sort of transition to learn? Obviously, I know the background is similar, but obviously industries are different. How did you sort of learn new industries?
A lot of that is soft skills. And one of the most important skill that even when I'm hiring new people, I I look for is the ability to learn. That is the most important quality. That's theoretically what is taught in a PhD, and it is taught to a degree, but the innate desire and ability to learn, to teach yourself new fields, to grow is essential to growing in a field as advanced quick as advancing as quickly as AI. So that ability to learn, when I get into the trenches of the postal service, I learned how mail was sorted. I learned how those processes. I didn't come in with that information. I had to learn it. And now at Lenovo, pivoting to Lenovo, I knew nothing about server manufacturing. I know nothing about, even then computer vision when it was first starting. I had to get familiar with the new methods, and then generative AI burst in team, and nobody knew anything about generative AI, more than 3 or 4 years ago. Before, it was just an academic topic that a couple people were working on, but it wasn't in the mass consciousness of the business world yet. It was just an academic topic. So I had to learn. I had to pick that up, and now we specialize in generative AI and computer vision. But that is all about learning and pivoting as quickly as possible, and not getting stuck in your old ways.
Fascinating, brilliant. And so, how did you learn them skills? Because obviously, it's obviously, yeah, like you say, businesses do want that
Uh,
skill set where people can adapt quickly. Because obviously, I mean, we've seen it in the last couple of years how fast this industry is moving. So, I guess how do you learn them skills, and I guess how can people illustrate that in the interview process? Because I guess, that's where you got to build trust with your prospective hirer.
Right, right. I usually ask in the interview process to get at that, what have you taught yourself recently? And if they haven't taught themselves, you should always be teaching yourself something new. Right now, I'm getting deeper into cloud architecture because that's the area that I'm a little weak on. So, I'm teaching myself all the time. I'm also teaching myself on, obviously the new agent based systems. So I'm teaching myself, I'm getting my hands dirty with projects. That's how I learn. You have to learn the way you learn, but usually I am at the cutting edge of what is happening in AI, and there's no courses out yet that teach you how to do this stuff. By the time the course comes out, it's too late. So you have to just get your hands dirty, work on the projects, and learn it firsthand. That's my most effective. Now everybody has their own method. Some people like conversations and podcasts, and I do use those. YouTube videos, I do use those, but yeah, just really keeping and getting my hands dirty. I'm an engineer at heart. Getting my hands dirty is how I learn.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like that as well. I think you got to throw yourself in the deep end, haven't you? Really, like end of the day, you're gonna not feel comfortable until you start learning. Really, are you?
Right. Right. And nobody knows anything. Like, I am learning new things. I have holes in what I'm learning every day, and the fact that I realize that is important. Realize those deficiencies, address those deficiencies. The problem you run into is when you think you know everything, then you essentially in 2 or 3 years you're phased out of the AI community because you haven't learned everything new that's come through. So the moment you're starting getting confident that, hey, I know everything, I've got this all down, I can always do it. That's the moment you start slipping.
No, I don't think many people will be like that 'cause the way it keeps moving. But then also, I think it's good to like when you're learning, you share, and then I think also it's important to ask questions, isn't it? To probe into people to
Mhm.
find out what's going on because I guess naturally we want to keep learning, don't we? We want to keep evolving, and I think the way the industry is going, I think you need to keep asking these questions because, like I said, there's so many different things happening out there.
Mhm. Absolutely, absolutely. Learning new things, talking to people. I have a wide network of people in venture capital and data science and all different types of areas that I reach out and talk to, that I get their updates. What are they excited about? What are they looking at?
Brilliant. Okay, let's move on to the next question. So, if you had to pinpoint one or two defining moments that changed your career, what would they be?
Sure. There the two ones that come up if we're talking about two defining moments. One is joining the postal service. That was a really big step for me, and it really helped me solve real world problems and deliver real world results. A lot of my work before that had been theoretical and like kind of just doing data science for the sake of doing data science. This one I had real problems to solve. And then on top of that, the Postal Service is an older organization, obviously, and it's not necessarily data driven. So creating that culture of data driven, of teaching and showing that these metrics matter and conveying that to leadership was an incredibly important lesson to learn. And, I would like to say that the Postal Service come a really long way, a lot more data driven than they ever used to be, really getting into the details of what's happening and why it's happening. So that was really important for my learning experience. And then the next part is where I've moved to be chief data scientist at Lenovo. This is the transition from going to an individual contributor to a manager. And this is, you have to learn how to motivate people, keeping the big picture in mind, keeping business objectives forefront. A lot of the softer skills that I've been developing as a data scientist came into play a lot more as a chief data scientist. And I'm, making that transition from being hands on the keyboard. I still try to keep some hands on the keyboard. It's important to keep them grounded and keep your skills up. But overall, developing those soft skills has been an important driver in this move from individual contributor to manager.
Yeah, no, I think it's a big challenge for a lot of people because I guess you've got to let go, haven't you, your technical ability. You've got to go
Yeah.
into the soft skills, and also you've got to have that passion. You've got to actually want to do it. If it's not just because you think it's the next best thing, you can stay as, and there's so much different opportunity out there now. So how did you find that transition?
I mean, fortunately, joining the Postal Service was a bit of a jarring moment. I had to realize what people needed, and that soft skill of understanding people and understanding what they need was important to develop at the Postal Service. Again, going back to always learning, I'm always pivoting to the next new thing and learning how to do it. The way you prepare is learning how to learn and developing your soft skills. I'm gonna keep I'm gonna keep on referring. There's a lot of data scientists out there, and they're good individual contributors. But if they don't know how to make a presentation, they don't know how to present data in a way that executives understand, they won't rise up in the organization. You need to show your data and show what's the point you're drawing from that data. So those skills are important to learn and develop all along your career trajectory.
Yeah, and it's also important to be able to illustrate it in easy terms to articulate. Because people are busy now and they want to get straight to the point and understand, isn't it? I think that's the big point, is being able to articulate your thoughts in just an easy to understand manner.
If you can't explain something in an easy to understand manner, you don't understand it yourself. You've gotten too far in the weeds. You don't really understand the basic concepts. Everything can be boiled down. If nuclear physics can be boiled down, if fundamental physics can be boiled down to simple concepts and analogies, everything can be. So yeah, if you can't communicate the value that you're providing, or you can't communicate the concept that you need the person to understand, you need to look into internally versus externally.
And then, so how were you developing your soft skills? Were you getting mentoring, training, or was it self learning?
I do get mentoring. I do a lot of mentoring. I do mentoring myself for other people, and I receive it quite a bit. I attend a lot of networking events. I try to get out there and meet people. At my level, people hire executive coaches. At the earlier levels, you don't usually do that, but at my level, you generally do that. So that's something I've done. Always learning, always pushing forward, always trying to learn the next new thing. But yeah, wherever I could find that information, I reach out. I'm very active on LinkedIn, reaching out to people, other VPs of data science, other VPs and directors out there to share their experiences, to see their perspective, to see their views on the industry. And that's how you develop the soft skills, is just by doing it. Developing your speaking ability is, coming on podcasts and doing and just doing things that maybe are additional to your work stream, but really add some flavor.
I think is getting out of your comfort zone is so powerful because obviously, like myself, I didn't want to do podcasts. Speaking was a thing for me when I first started, but now you just overcome it and then you move forward. Get confidence in yourself, and then you move. So for
Mhm.
yourself, I mean, what's been the most impactful of training to get them soft skills? Because there will be a lot of listeners who want to make jump ship from, say, technical expert into leadership. What do you feel has been the most beneficial thing for yourself?
That's a hard question because it is like drops in a bucket. Like everything that you learn, everything that you build, it builds on top of each other over time. You have to get out there and do presentations. I know that you may not want to, but if one of my great learning experience at the Postal Service was near daily briefings with the VP or whoever was there or the director of analytics about what my data meant and what data I'd uncovered that day. That really refined my ability to talk to leaders, to boil it down to easy to understand and intuitive concepts, and that was really a defining experience. And that is a lesson to learn. You don't have to work for Amazon or Microsoft or Nvidia in order to be a good data scientist. Sometimes targeting industries that are a little bit unusual, like the Postal Service, give you a chance to learn skills that you would otherwise never get exposed to. So I would encourage people that are trying to break into data science, don't just apply to the Amazons of the world. Go out there, find real world experience somewhere in some industry, and you'll find a lot more success than just going for the high status, big tech job.
I think it's important to choose something you're passionate about because when you're going through the learning, you're going to have dark days where things are tough. But if you've got something you're passionate about, it's going to make it so much more, the drive will kick you through.
Mhm. Absolutely, yeah. A lot of perseverance, but it doesn't feel as much like perseverance when you're doing something you like. If you're doing something that you hate doing, it's unlikely. It is possible, but it's unlikely that you'll succeed at it. You have to enjoy what you're doing. Because otherwise, people see when you're not bringing joy to your conversations, when you're not enthusiastic to see them at the beginning of meetings. I don't want to be in all the meetings I'm in all day, but I try to bring my best self every time I start a meeting. So, we just have to do that at our job.
Great advice. So, have you ever faced a major career setback?
Well, like I said, that's when I pivoted. When I couldn't find a job as a biomedical engineer, I was out of work for a number of months looking for a job. And I just had to find something else that works, some sort of angle to pivot to. If what you're doing is not working, if you're applying to hundreds of places and not hearing back from anybody, then you need to pivot what you're doing. And that's what I learned there. And it worked out for me. Of course, I pivoted into the right field. There's a lot to be said about being lucky. And I definitely was lucky in getting that recommendation from a friend to pivot to a new exciting career field. But if what you're doing is not working, think it through and try something new. Is the recommendation I would give. And that was being out of work, especially out of your PhD for a number of months, is very challenging. It was I think, do I find a place in the world? Is there something I can do that's value to society? And it's a big struggle. So I definitely sympathize with people that are just starting out, trying to find their place in industry.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I think now is the industry is so tough to get into. It's challenging, isn't it? I mean, businesses want experienced people because of the way it goes so quick. So this obviously you touched on a big bit when you were out of work. Obviously, nobody wants to be out of work 'cause it's just yeah dealing with the mindset. How did you overcome them sort of hurdles? Because when you're not if you're applying for jobs and not getting nowhere, it can be detrimental to yourself. So how did you keep going?
I mean, I had to eat, so you have to continue forward. I had a very supportive wife helping me through the process, which is not something obviously everybody has, but I had a very supportive wife that really helped me when I was feeling terrible about the outcomes that were occurring. Believed in me. One of the advice that she gave me was I was like, I have no idea how to do whatever particular thing that I was being asked to do. I have no idea how to do it. And she said, you might not know how to do it, but there's no one I would trust more to learn how to do it. And, that stuck with me. And like, okay, so I can figure this out. I can overcome the challenges that come at me. And so, I'd like to offer that advice to anyone that's struggling or seeking right now.
Brilliant. That's great insight. So then the market is so super competitive. What do you think is giving you the genuine edge?
Two things. Again, like we've mentioned a few times, the soft skills is very important. Your ability to lead, your ability to convey information in a way, your ability to present information is critically important. That differentiates a data scientist working on his computer all day to somebody that's out there presenting to the executive leadership. Also, my edge, what we're going to talk about probably here in the future a little bit, is combining deep technical expertise in AI with relentless focus on business outcomes. You don't just build models, you don't just build data science projects, you unlock value in what you're doing. And you develop AI tools that save sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars.
Brilliant. Okay, let's move on to the data topic. So everyone's investing in AI, but few are seeing real ROI. So what separates the companies making money from AI from those that are just experimenting?
Sure. The difference, I think, is operational alignment. Companies generating ROI treat AI as a business capacity, not just an innovative lab experiment. They start with high value use cases tied to core processes like sales or supply chain or customer support. And then they build cross functional teams to deploy, monitor, and iterate and to fail fast. So you might have heard that term before. Failing fast, I think, is critical, but you need that alignment between the businesses and the data scientists to really drive the value for the company. Without that, everything's just a science experiment. You can go off and create a perfect model, but if nobody uses your model, it's had no business impact. Nobody cares that you have 99% accuracy if it doesn't save them any money or generate any revenue. The other kind of key to making business values is don't go for keywords. I know there's a temptation. Oh, everybody's talking about agentic AI. I have to do something agentic AI to keep my resume up to date. Um, if you drive for keywords, I talk to executives, I talk to customers. I probably talked to 50 customers in the last 2 months. And a lot of them are saying things like, oh, I need agentic AI. And I'm like, you're a construction company. Why do you need agentic AI? What are you trying to solve for? I don't know, but I need agentic AI. I'm like, okay, we're going for keywords. We're not going for value. And that is what's to avoid.
Yeah, no, I mean, I hear this from so many people that they just even want to be in the crowd, the conversation. But so, why do you think people go generative AI first instead of like looking at the clear business problems first?
Because it's the cool thing to do. I mean, trends dominate. It feels like you're a teenager following fashion trends in tech. You know, kids. You know, people just are going to what's the next hot topic that the executives they can claim to their board that they're doing an agentic AI system with generative AI, models running in the background. So yeah, I just think it's what people get excited about. When I deploy models, I use the simplest model possible to solve the problem. If that's linear regression, I'm going to use linear regression. I solve the problem with the easiest solution. And only if that solution doesn't work do I step up to the more advanced. A lot of novices in the field jump to the most advanced technique because, hey, it's exciting. And why not? You add a lot of complexity, a lot of cost, a lot of time into the project where you could find out, like maybe your data's not ready. And if you do a linear regression model and you get back 20% accuracy, you know your data's not ready. And you didn't have to waste 3 months, 4 months creating a generative AI solution because your data wasn't ready. You found out you failed fast. You found out quickly that this was not going to work. You missed that when you jumped to the most complicated solution right off the bat.
And how long should you fail for?
I mean,
How long's a piece of string?
yeah, yeah. You can't exhaust the patience of your executives, but innovation comes at the expense of failure. I can, when I'm like looking at companies or talking to companies, I can judge their level of innovation by their tolerance of failure. Failure happens when you're operating at the edge of your ability. It just does. And if you can't accept, you're an organization that can't accept failure, then you're an organization that does not encourage innovation. You're an organization that encourages the status quo, staying where it is, and you're never going to have a successful AI program. So, it's like a little hint out there when you're looking for cultures of companies to join. Having understanding of how they deal with failure and how they deal with innovation is a key area.
I guess it's a lot that needs to go into it, doesn't there? Because you need to obviously invest in your staff, obviously redesigning processes, and I guess the big challenge is obviously getting executive buy-in, isn't it?
Absolutely. Everything starts with executive buy-in. And sometimes they want the keywords and you have to convince them that the business outcomes, the ROI is more important than the keywords. But overall, if you are delivering on your metrics, if you are delivering our, if you, the most AI projects fail from the outset that they did not establish KPIs that can drive ROI for the business. That is why they fail. They were never intended to succeed. But if you start with your um, your outcome in mind, your ROI, your KPIs, you are already halfway to solving the problem.
Well, so then it's easier to, I guess, track the performance and where you're at.
Yeah, because you have an objective.
Yeah.
You're pushing forward. You're not just you can sit for months in your thing and play with accuracy and play with this and that. But until you get it involved in the business processes, no revenue is being generated, no cost is being saved. So getting out there early, getting involved in the process and implementing it. And if you have KPIs that are business driven, you instantly know that's what you need to do with your time and your model versus just creating the best accuracy of your model.
Yeah. And also, I think touching on what you've mentioned throughout the podcast is them soft skills, being able to actually speak, communicate with the executives is going to make your job a lot easier, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's critical. If you're the data scientist that they roll their eyes when you walk in the room, you're not going to get very far because those guys are just going to talk about whatever and talk about this and this problem and that problem and this problem and why this doesn't work. If you're that guy, you're not going to get a lot of buy-in. You need to be focused on what will work, what are the best solutions out there, be positive and be able to communicate in a business driven manner.
Yeah. Provide solutions, not problems.
Right.
So, where is AI currently driving the most measurable financial impact, like cost savings, revenue growth, or new business models?
So right now, I would say cost savings is leads, especially like in call center automation, predictive maintenance, document processing, but revenue growth is quickly catching up, through a personalized personalization, guided selling, generative AI powered marketing content. And so there's a lot of out there. Um, you know, we are at the early stages. Like new business models are emerging even more slowly that kind of combine cost savings with revenue generation. And I'd like to compare that to when electricity was first introduced. It's a great technology. It really changed the world in so many ways. But when factories initially introduced electricity, they were trying to change the system, how it operated before, and just make tweaks to how it operated before, and they didn't really see a lot of financial gain. It's only when they came and redesigned the process from the ground up and said, now we can do all these, we can reinvent the way a factory works through electricity, did you really start gaining the value out of that technology. So same thing with AI. If you are, and we're at the stage right now where you are just tweaking this and that. You're just speeding up a little bit of document processing. You're speeding up this and that. You're only nibbling at the edges of what AI can do. When you sit down and redesign a system based on AI, that's when you're going to really start delivering value.
Brilliant. And then, so how should companies think about calculating ROI from AI initiatives?
Ideally, it shouldn't be hard. Ideally, it should be tied to the same business KPIs that they already care about: revenue, churn reduction, cycle time, cost per transaction. That means, and the important part about that is you have to baseline what the current performance is. You have to know what the current performance is. And a lot of businesses don't know what their churn rate is and so you have to know that a priori before you start AI projects so that you can then measure the change, ideally measurable within 3 to 6 months of how things have changed when you implement an AI solution. But if you are choosing metrics that don't matter to the business, you've got the wrong business.
Why don't businesses choose metrics in?
I'm sorry, what again?
Why would businesses not choose metrics to start with then? Is it just they just get
It
carried
is
away
hard.
or
It is hard. I mean, so you're introducing a chatbot. That's an easy thing to see revenue increase. But let's say you're automating the supply chain. What is the cost of not having the right part at the right location at this certain time? It's not always immediately obvious what the costs are. I ran into this problem a lot at the Postal Service. We designed a system that helped you know when to run the machines and when to process packages. And how much did that save? How much did that was hard to come up with at the Postal Service. And that was a challenge. So it's 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 because you can influence things and sometimes there's not a direct when you're influencing the sales process or customer support process, there's direct ROI benefits. But when you're
Mhm.
doing more complicated projects, sometimes it's not as easy to come up with the business objective and the business ROI that's clearly defined. Like I said, coming up with supply chain, what was the cost of goods for holding too much inventory? What was the cost of not having the repair part ready for the customer and potentially losing that customer? And did you lose the customer because of that? Or did you lose them for another reason? So all those factor into it. I realize business is complicated. It's not always an easy single decision, but as much as possible, you have to boil it down to something that matters to the business.
Yeah, agree. Obviously, business is challenging. So, can you share? Do you have an example or story where about unlocking serious value from AI?
Sure. So I was working with a wiring harness company, and they were doing production planning. They had invoices A, B, and C, and they had skill groups 1, 2, and 3, and they were looking at how do we plan the right number of people and right number of skill hours to complete the invoices that we have on hand. And they were doing that manually and guesstimating at things. We designed an automated procedure that combined data from 3 different data sources and you know dealt with all the data quality issues that we were facing, created an automated system, and that enabled the reduce their production downtime by 20%, and also which resulted in a savings about $1 to $2 million per year on an annual basis for that company of only about 50 people. So as a small company, that's a significant savings for them. There's another one. They were talking about unusual ROI metrics. The one we did with NASCAR. And NASCAR winning is your ROI. Is coming in first place. Is coming in a higher location. So in NASCAR, you want to put just enough fuel in the car to get to the finish line or get to the pit stop anymore, you're riding heavy and wasting time, any less, and you don't get there. The current state of the art is for someone to sit there and count 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi as they fill up the gas tank. There's no gas gauges on the car or on the gas can. Those are not allowed. So they're just counting 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. We put a camera over top, measure the time and angle which is attached for, gave a precise measurement of the gas going in the car, and conveyed that information to the pit chief in real time. He then was able to release the car early, pulling forward 2 to 4 positions per pit stop. Again, that's a KPI. How many positions do you pull forward? And resulting in a first place finish in Richmond. So, when we'd like to say that we contributed to that first place finish.
Brilliant. Great examples there. Winning is good. So then I guess this final question we'll have. So if a CFO asks you how the AI investment is going to pay for itself in the next 12 months, what would your response be?
If I wait for the CFO to ask that question, I've already failed. You should not present something to corporate leadership without clear cost and revenue generation metrics. But let's say I hadn't done that. And he does ask that question. You showed them a cost impact curve with clear proof points. For example, if we can automate 30% of support tickets or reduce forecasting errors by 10%, we can directly calculate that cost reduction or margin improvement. And here it's important to highlight time to value. Pilot should prove ROI in under 90 days. If it's taking months to prove the ROI, you may get your funding cut. They may not have the patience unless they buy in at the beginning and they understand this is a long-term project. It is really important to deliver value early so they know it's working and invest stronger into the project. And so again, don't wait for your CFO to ask. If you're presenting to the CFO, if you're presenting to the C-suite, you need to have those numbers in your mind already.
Brilliant. Thank you for your insights there. And yeah, it's been a pleasure, David, having you on the podcast. I like how you've pivoted different industries, obviously made the transition into leadership from IC, and obviously brilliant on learning the soft skills, which I think it's a never ending, isn't it? You got to keep building on your learning soft skills.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're always learning.
Brilliant. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure being here.